Right. It's time for us to have a chat about Watford. If you haven't seen it already, we've predicted Watford to go down in our league table predictions. A club who were in the Premier League 3 seasons ago. A club who have spent more time in the Premier League in the last 10 years than the Championship. A club who haven't been in the 3rd tier of English football since 1998. We think they're getting relegated from the Championship this season. So why did we do that?
What, were you just bored and fancied a laugh?
No, not at all. There are a lot of reasons to be worried about Watford. Not just getting relegated, perhaps even more. So let me tell you why. I'm Ryan Dilks from the 2nd tier, and here's why you should be worried about Watford. So let's start with this bit of news which broke earlier in the summer. Watford's owners, the Pozzo family, decided to sell 10% of the club to fans and investors. The club said they were doing it to raise over £17 million in funds, and then part of that money will go towards strengthening the squad. Now, don't understand what that means? That's fine. That's fine. Last month, we spoke to football finance expert Kieran Maguire about it. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I'm not very popular at Vicarage Road. I think it's fair to say my assessment has not been glowing. I think what Watford are trying to do, and let's look at it through their eyes. They are fully aware that there are many people in the world, especially in the United States, who have become enchanted by football and want a piece of the action. So what are you getting for your shares? Well, you're not getting a vote. So normally owning a share is owning a fraction of a business. So you're not getting any votes with those shares. So the owner can go and sell his shares with all the votes to somebody else. You can't sell the shares for at least 12 months. You're not going to get a dividend on the shares. You're not going to get any interest because you don't pay interest on shares. So what have you got? You've got a piece of paper which you'll have to print off yourself. You do get a digital certificate. Well, that's great. Okay, fine. So you can look at it on your phone. So yeah, I now own a fraction of Watford Football Club. There are some perks. If, for example, you spend £800,000 on buying shares in this offer from Watford Football Club, you get a free scarf, home, away and third kits. You get free parking and you get to go to lunch with the manager. I just don't see value in the deal, and I've said that. And I've also said, and I'll say it here, I'm not a financial advisor. If you want to go and buy 50 quid's worth of shares, stick a certificate on the wall and feel slightly warm inside, do it. But just don't expect to see the money again. View it as a donation rather than an investment, and that's fine. But if that is the case, you've got to wonder why Watford are having to go through this particular route.
So the long and short of it is this. Would a club who's absolutely fine when it comes to having cash in the bank for transfers be doing this? Of course not. No, they wouldn't. They've said that some of the money will be used to fund transfers. So it's a strange move, right? It doesn't mean Watford are on the brink of a meltdown, but at the time, it was certainly an eyebrow raiser. And as the summer has gone on, it's become more and more apparent that Watford could really use some money for transfers. Here's some of the players who were at the club last season and have now gone. Emmanuel Dennis, Jamal Lewis, Matthias Martins, Ishmael Kone, Ben Hamer and Jake Livermore. Not a huge amount, but it's a decent chunk of a squad to lose. You add on top of that, they're probably going to lose their best player in Wesley Hoyt, their most exciting player in Yasser Asprilla, and another very good player in Imran Louza. It's left the Watford squad looking bare. Really bare. And who have they brought in? Moussa Sissoko, who turns 35 this month and looks like his best days are well behind him. Jonathan Bond, a backup goalkeeper. Yasser Larouci, who played a handful of games for Sheffield United last season at left back. Then a few young lads as well, who may feature a bit for Watford next season, but hard to say how much of an impact they'll have. Ultimately, put it this way, this squad has gone from having João Pedro and Ismail Assar last year to this. It's seriously lacking in quality. how many of these players would get into a mid-table championship side? It is genuinely a difficult question to answer. So Watford desperately need money for transfers, but maybe the Potsos who run the club just don't have it anymore. Maybe they've said, we've invested enough money in football, it's time to move on. Maybe they're... So for those who don't know, the Pozzo family also own Italian club Udinese, who, as you can see here, have spent a fair bit of money this summer, whereas Watford have spent the bare minimum so far. These look to be classic signs of an ownership who are losing interest in a football club. Once upon a time, the Pozzos seemed so invested in Watford. It was them and Udinese on a similar level. Now, it's hard to deny that's not the case anymore. But here is where my concern levels are really high. You may have seen recently that Bordeaux have gone out of business over in France. A massive historic club, essentially chucked on the scrap heap and have now died. Also in France, Artois, a club who just suffered back-to-back relegations after being in Ligue 1 in the 2022-23 season. Standard Liège in Belgium, another big club in Europe, they're in deep, deep trouble financially. What do all these clubs have in common? They're all involved in multi-club ownership. Their owners also run other football clubs. Now, owners running multiple football clubs has become more and more common in recent years, but there's an increasing trend now where these clubs who are in serious bother are part of multi-club ownership portfolios. And it's something which needs to be seriously looked at. A lot of the time it's because the owners end up focusing on one club over the others. I'm concerned that Watford may end up being one of those clubs involved in multi-club ownership who are next in trouble. There are further financial problems for Watford, and I understand this may be a bit technical and boring, but I'll keep it brief. A lot of this is also from Kieran Maguire, who's just an absolute genius when it comes to explaining this stuff. Parachute payments, they're gone. They've ended this season, so they're not getting that money anymore. Watford say they have had pre-tax profits of 24 million in the last tax year, which is true, but 59 million of that came from player sales because they sold João Pedro and Emmanuel Dennis. So take out that 59 million, you can do the math. Now, they've already sold Ismael Kone for 15 million this summer. Yasser Asprilla and Wesley Hoyt will fetch a bit of money as well. Once they're gone, though, how many players do Watford have left who they could sell for a lot of money? Right now, probably no one. Possibly young Ryan Andrews if he has a good season, but you're struggling after that. So without that money coming in from player sales, you're looking at Watford losing tens of millions each year. And if the owners do end up clocking out of the club, then you've got a real problem. But back onto this season, we've mentioned how the squad is looking very light. We haven't even mentioned they've got a manager in charge who is the definition of a rookie. At 34, Tom Cleverley is the youngest manager in the Championship and has managed just 9 games so far in his managerial career. Now, in fairness to him, he did a brilliant job in his short time last season. 9 games in charge, just 2 losses. 7 of those games were against sides who finished in the top half of the Championship. That includes Ipswich, Leeds, Southampton and West Brom. It's really quite impressive. But this is a completely different kettle of fish for Tom Cleverley. The squad is significantly weaker and he may have to deal with a pretty toxic atmosphere at times this season if they do end up having as rotten a season as we've discussed here. It's such a difficult hand he's been dealt and you feel sorry for him, really. If he manages to keep them away from a relegation battle, fair play to him. But the likelihood is it's going to be a long, hard season. And is he a good enough manager to turn it around? Experience-wise, it's definitely not on his side, is it, unfortunately? So this is why I'm concerned with Watford. Firstly, a squad that's significantly weaker than where it was 2 years ago. Little chance that it's going to be strengthened before the transfer window closes. They probably will make some signings, but it doesn't look like they're going to be dipping into their pockets for those signings. A manager in charge who's inexperienced, a serious possibility of relegation, and above all else, a set of owners who seem to be losing interest in the football club. There's a lot of warning signs with Watford, and you've got to feel sorry for the fans especially, because 5 years ago they were in an FA Cup final. Now there's a serious chance they'll be watching their team in League One next season. It's a really sorry state of affairs, and hopefully there's some form of resolution in the next year or so, but who really knows at this stage. But there we go. This is why you should be worried about Watford this coming season. If you've got anything to say, put it in the comments section below. If you've found this video interesting, make sure you give it a like and subscribe for more content like this over the season. Just a cheeky reminder that we've done our league table predictions now. If you want to find out who we think is going up, who we think is finishing in the playoffs, who we think is going down, go and give that a watch right now. But this has been The Second Tier. I've been Ryan Dilks. A big thank you for watching.